Welcome to Meeting of the Moms, a place to talk about all the things. I'm Amy Rasmussen. I'm a teacher by profession, a wife and mother by choice, an optimist by nature, and happy by design. I'm here with my good friend Lorna, who I call one of my greatest cheerleaders.
Hi, I'm Lorna Adams. I'm a wife, mom, and certified life coach. I strive to embrace and enjoy each new phase of life. Here at Moms, we believe the world is wide open to all of us and that we have unlimited potential. We're so glad you're here.
I am excited today to talk about something that blew my mind and opened my eyes to a completely different way to view the world. You've heard this story before, Lorna, but I'm going to tell it again to set the stage for what we're talking about. Several years ago, I was helping with the teenagers at church, and we were going to do root beer floats. And so I was standing there chatting with the guys, and they were in charge of the refreshments. So they were scooping the ice cream. And this guy was scooping the ice cream, and that ice cream must have been really frozen because this was like a full body event to scoop the ice cream. It was that difficult. And I'm like, wow, it seems like that ice cream is really hard. I was kind of joking with him. And he's like, this scoop is a right-handed ice cream scoop. And I started laughing and I said, what are you talking about? It's not even a thing. And he's like, yeah, it is. I'm like, I don't even believe you. And he's like, I'm left-handed and it makes a difference. And he's like, I'm having to scoop with my non-dominant hand, my right hand, and it just makes the whole thing hard. So we got in this whole conversation because I mean, not that that sounds awesome, but sometimes when something changes how we view the world, it's such a silly, fundamental way. We're like, I just don't even believe that that is true. How can that really be a thing? Well, so after all the scooping and stuff, he showed me the ice cream scoop. And he's like, if you look at the ice cream scoop, it actually, the ridge on one side
I have one right here.
than the other. And then there's also like this kind. So point out what would be different on your ice cream scoop on this one.
So this one, I have to make sure it's almost not in focus. So this one has the metal swiper thing.
That like makes sure the whole scoop comes out. Okay.
Yes. And if I hold it with my right hand, it's flush, like the metal is smooth, so I can go in. Scoop up the ice cream, and then the little bar, the little metal part will push it out.
Right.
If I do it with my left hand, then I'm scraping against that little bar, trying to grab the ice cream and then trying to squish it out.
Yeah.
And it doesn't work. It's not as helpful. It's not as easy to use.
Yeah. Yeah. And then you've got the ones that maybe have just a thumb lever.
Yes.
Right. So that's going to be a pain if you're left-handed.
Totally. And that one, yes. So I am left-handed.
Yep.
So
and I'm
I
right-handed.
totally know. Right, Amy?
Yep.
So sometimes I am using like my middle finger or my first finger to try and close the lever, but I'm still trying to scoop it against that little bar, that little, what is this called? What should we call it?
I don't even know what that's called. I think scooper bar sounds great.
So then once again, I'm digging into the ice cream against that little bar that's trying to help me to get it out, but I'm trying to get it in.
Yeah. And it's just not engineered that way.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And so then even on the very simple ice cream scoops that do not have the scraper bar, some ice cream scoops have one side that is a skinnier ridge and the other side is a thicker ridge. And so it completely opened my eyes to something I had never realized. I knew that you were left-handed at that time. And another one of my favorite people in the world is left-handed. And the three of us are all good friends. And so I'm like, oh my goodness, these two good friends of mine are left-handed. And I have not even known that these are things. So I'd asked you about it at the time. And so today, kind of from in the context of left-handedness versus right-handedness, or being a left-handed person in a right-handed world, we're going to talk a little bit about dealing with differences, especially the ones where, like me, it's like, that cannot even be a thing. It seems so foreign to us. And then once our eyes are open to it, all of a sudden there's more and more things that we start seeing like, this would be more difficult for someone who is left-handed. And we start seeing how the world in some ways might be engineered for a certain way of doing life. And the goal, I guess, would be to help us recognize that we're different. People really are different. And with left-handedness and right-handedness is something that can be pretty obvious once it's there or if we're sitting together. But there's so many other things that are not so obvious. And so anyway, hopefully a little bit brain bending. What other things, what do you want to say right now?
Well, let me show you a few of the other things.
Okay.
So I, with here's a ladle, and on one side it has the little pour spout. If I'm holding it with my right hand, it's perfect. The pour spout is right where I need it. If I'm holding it with my left hand, it isn't helpful. There's no
Yeah.
need to even have a pour spout on that
Right.
side. A measuring cup, if I'm holding it with my right hand, I can see the cup measurements, half
Okay.
cup, quarter cup, whatever. If I'm holding it with my left hand, I cannot. This is the like the milliliters, the liters, that's the side where we don't in America, we don't use that side.
Yeah.
And
So I
then
guess if you're left-handed, you have to use the metric system.
yes, that's what it is. I have one other thing that is going to not even seem like a big deal, but it is.
Oh,
Cutter, like those big paper cutters.
yeah.
And the blade is on the right-hand side. So when I am trying to line it up just right, you're going to laugh, but I seriously, numerous times, I will put the bar against my shoulder so I can line it up the way I want with my left hand.
Yeah.
Because I have to, anyway, it just is an interesting thing that it is different. Being right-handed, lots of things are made for right-handers without even realizing it. But being left-handed, trying to do it my way, it just is very interesting. And I've even wondered when cars first started, when they were designing cars, was that really right-handed people? I mean, I'm guessing because the gear shifts are on the right-hand side. Next to the steering wheel, it's either here or down, but it's all on the right side. I know that other cars outside of America, sometimes the driver's seat is on the right-hand side.
Right.
So I'm guessing the levers are on the left.
Yep,
I don't know.
they are. They are.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I guess I need to live in Europe and
Right.
then I can enjoy being.
Well, and you have to find a specific place to live because much of Europe is like the United States.
Okay.
So you'd have to go to like England.
Okay.
Or you'd really
England.
Maybe this can be how you travel. You can look up which countries drive on the opposite side of the road as the US. I'm going to visit there and I am going to drive there and I will just live in my left-handed glory.
Yes, I'm going to love it. I was going to just say really quick, because knowing I'm left-handed and the struggle, I have totally found these measuring cups that the measurement is on the end rather than on the side. So when I am measuring, I can look in and see, or from the opposite side, but it isn't an issue with my pouring. So it's been nice to find a few of those things that there is an option. Maybe it's more neutral handed.
Ambidextrous.
Yes. And then one more thing too,
nice.
Scissors.
Yes.
When I was little, there used to be like a spot where if you were right-handed, it fit your finger really well.
Uh-huh.
And I would use those sometimes with my left hand and it would dig into my thumb area.
Yeah.
Now they make them so it's smoother for both hands. However, the blades are still set up.
Right.
Where you it's for a right-hander with your eye as you're seeing it cut the paper, it's set up for a right-hander. I am used to them. I think it would almost be harder to try and switch my blades on my scissors to cut for a left-handed person because I'm so used to using them now.
Right.
But even that, I mean, there are lots of little things that you wouldn't think about, but we do.
Right.
We notice because it's different for us.
Right. Well, and I think if we think about neurodivergence, or if we think about maybe how our nervous system responds to certain things, it depends on how things land with a person, right? So if it's not making your life more difficult, you're not noticing it.
Yeah.
And so it can be very easy then to think, oh, that person's just being over the top with that, or that person just has issues or whatever, instead of thinking we're all different. And now they've told me something about themselves that I can actually be aware of and be helpful with. And of course, back in the day, that even happened with being left-handed or right-handed. People tried to force the right-handed way of doing things. So
yeah. And I'm grateful. I had a grandma that was left-handed. And she was left-handed. I don't know, but I feel like she lived in the generation where they would have tried to make her right-handed.
Right.
But she wasn't. I don't know if she was just stubborn and was like, no way, I'm doing it my way.
Right.
Or what exactly happened. Maybe her parents were like, no, we want her to do what feels comfortable to her. But I'm so grateful for that because then she kind of forged a little bit of a path for me. And it was actually kind of something to celebrate. I was left-handed just like my own grandma, Lorna.
Yes.
I had her name and I was left-handed. So it made it super special. Yeah.
Yeah, that is fun. So a couple more things that I learned about. This guy who was talking to me told me about measuring tapes, being left-handed. And I was telling him, like, well, I have a measuring tape that I can show Lorna, but I don't really know how it's left-handed. So you're like, I do. So tell us, how is a measuring tape Right-handed, I mean. It's right-handed.
Yeah, when you pull it out, the numbers are readable. When I pull it out left-handed, they're upside down.
Yeah. I mean, because I hold the measuring tape in my right hand and I pull it like this and I can read all the numbers. But you would most comfortably hold the measuring tape in your left hand, pull the tape out, and they'd be upside down.
Yep.
So they do sell left-handed tape measures.
Yes.
This guy I was talking to told me that. Something else someone said is that if I have this on my right-hand side, like on a tool belt or something, and then I pull it out.
Your measuring tape?
Same kind of I pull the measuring tape out. Same kind of thing. The numbers are right side up.
Yes.
And they're in the right direction because I can pull the tape out from my hip. If I'm left-handed, I'm like, okay, I want it on my left-hand side. Well, I'd have to pull it out behind myself instead of in front of myself. So that was an interesting one. Yep. One I just learned about today is a can opener, a manual can opener. Yep. And so that is generally made so that your right hand is
twisting,
right? Yep. And then a really, really everyday item is the spiral notebook, you guys.
Yep.
And of course, Lorna's like, yeah, hello. that is hard because you're leaning against the spiral the entire time.
Yeah.
So that's kind of interesting. Although it's interesting for me because then I'll have the same issue if I turn the page and turn it over, then my hand is there.
Well, I feel like it is mostly the issue that I'm writing over my words.
Yes, that was the other one I just saw.
Yeah. In elementary school, my hand would always have lead on the base, but it was always like lead and then pen, a lot of the time pen. Now I've learned to write a little bit lower so I'm not like smearing my words.
Yep.
So it isn't a thing. But yeah, it is so interesting how that is the case.
Yeah.
There have been times where I've started a notebook at the back just so I didn't have to worry about it. And even sometimes I'm like, I should just write from right to left. So then I have a similar experience. Anyway.
Right. And yet that would be hard. Because then you're having to read that. Anyway.
Totally. Totally. And it was more when I was being creative in my early years.
I know. Yeah. But I'm just thinking the problem solving one might try to do. It's like, yeah, but my whole world is if I'm going to write the, I'd have to write the backwards, not just write the and then go to the left. It's a whole thing.
Totally.
Right?
Yep. Absolutely. Yeah. And I played with it. I totally have played with writing everything backward, like writing my name backward and going from right to left.
Yeah. Yeah. That is fun that you're like, I'm going to see if I can do it. When I get your next Christmas card, I am going to pay attention to whether or not you sign it that way. No, I'm just kidding.
So you'll have to look in the mirror.
Backwards.
You're going to have to hold it up to the mirror.
Right. I won't know that it's your name until I hold it up in the mirror. That's how that's going to work.
Right.
So I had an experience yesterday that kind of helped me also get a feel for this. I went to a meeting and I sat down at the table, and then I found out that rather than having an in-person presenter, it was going to be up on the screen. And so rather than being able to sit at the table like this, I was going to have to be turned to my right.
Okay.
And I'm like, well, that's a pain because the table's now at my left. And I wish I'd sat at the other side of the table. And really, wherever the front of the room is, I can think about this now and think I want to sit such that if I'm having to turn my body to that part of the room, then I have the table on my right. And I know when I've been with you and our other left-handed friend, if we're going to all sit by each other, we kind of talk about it. And it's like, you guys can sit one after the other, and then I sit to your right, because then my right hand is not bumping with your left hand as we're writing and taking notes. So just kind of some fun things to learn.
Well, we've talked about that, even just at a dinner table. Like if we go to a restaurant, sometimes it depends. Like my husband's totally used to me. So we don't necessarily bump into each other. Even if I'm on his right, he's right-handed, I'm left-handed. Even if our hands are at this, that hasn't been an issue. We have worked through that maybe at the very, very beginning. I don't even know how much effort it took, but we just know. And anyway, so it's been fine. But there have been times where we absolutely, with other people too, we're like, hey, you guys are left-handers, you sit together.
Yep.
And then the right-handers, so we're not bumping each other.
Yeah.
So anyway, just kind of an interesting thing, huh?
Yeah.
Well, and I'm a chorister. I lead the music at church, and I lead with my left hand. And the first couple of weeks, I did get a few comments like, oh, are we supposed to sing backward? And they're just being silly. It didn't bother me at all. But it is different. And I even had thought that, like, I wonder how our congregation is going to handle it, because you typically see a right-handed chorister. And I absolutely could. I have trained myself to be able to lead with my right hand over the years, but it is absolutely more natural for me to do left-handed. So it is easy for me to pick up and do left-handed. And if it was necessary, I would figure it out with my right hand. And I can. I mean, it takes a little extra thought, but it's been fun that my congregation has been fine and has embraced me with whatever I offer.
Well, what's interesting though, both with my response and even their, friendly, joking response or whatever. Yeah. Sometimes how we respond in our own moment of like, my whole world is shifting here, right? Is done in a way that unfortunately can land kind of painfully. I mean, luckily the guy that I was talking to, he and I get along just fine, and we were both kind of laughing about it, and like it was fine. Just like with you, luckily it was fine as they came up there. And we're like, oh, are we singing backwards? But I think, too, sometimes we don't see how the way we approach someone else's difference, especially when they are in maybe the minority, can actually be, we're doing it in a way that's like, do I have to do it that way? Or could I just be kind and be like, oh, you're left-handed. That's cool, period. I'm not saying we can't notice a difference.
Yeah.
But I do think sometimes we don't consider how our response to a difference lands with the person who's like, yes, thank you. I have been feeling different about this my entire life, and people continue to buy me things for the kitchen that don't work for me. And thanks for just bringing it up again, right? And of course, that we get to decide how we do that. But also, it could be hard to be in a minority of whatever thing.
Yeah.
In a group that's maybe not very understanding.
Well, and I wish I could think of an example, but I know I have been in a situation where I've had a conversation with someone that has something unique to me that I wasn't familiar with before as I'm interacting with them. And so then I'm bringing it up. And I think after I've had a couple of those conversations over the last couple months, and I've thought, I'm sure they get tired of people pointing out that something is different. And I can't even give you a good example at all. I don't even know what that thing would be. But it just has been interesting to kind of consider that ultimately we're all people. We are all people, and we all, maybe we tick a little bit differently, do things a little bit differently, but we're all just people, just trying, just doing our best.
Yep. And I think what's interesting for me is it was such an eye-opening experience, right? Talking to this guy about it, that it was also super helpful, because then I did have a conversation with you about it. The other day, I'm going to actually show you a picture. The other day, I came across something. In fact, my husband did. I told my husband about the situation months ago, and we kind of laughed about my whole mind-blowing experience. And then the other day, he's like, look at this milk. It is totally a right-handed milk jug. And I'm like, what are you talking about? And then he showed me what he was talking about. And I'm like, you're right. So I texted it to the guy that I had talked about. So if you're on YouTube, you can see this milk jug. And what's interesting about this, first, Lorna, when you think a milk jug is right-handed, what did you think of? Because you told me something.
I thought, for sure the label is, you can see the front of the label when you're holding it with your right hand. So I never see the label on my milks.
Right, because you pick it up with your left hand, right? Yeah. So what was interesting to me is that Nels pointed out that this right-hand side goes lower and makes it more comfortable for that fleshy part of your hand on the side of your palm if you're right-handed. And in the past, milk has been the same on both sides. It's been like this left side. So I've never noticed it. So this is different. This particular milk jug was different. And I'm like, that is a right-handed milk jug. And so I sent him a picture. I sent the guy a picture. And he said the thing about the label, which I hadn't even thought about because this whole left-handed world is new to me. And then I said, but look at the handle. And I pointed out, and he's like, that is diabolical. Like, why does the world have to be so difficult? And he was just joking. But it's interesting how by paying attention to the difference, it can actually open our eyes in a good way too. So that's what's unique here. Gretchen Rubin has said, we're more alike than we think, but the differences among us are very important. Or to put it in another way, you're unique just like everybody else, which is kind of funny. Yeah. But I like that idea that we are very similar. And like you said, we're all people. We're all just people. And yet I think sometimes if we stop there, then I never would have realized like, oh, it is helpful for us to think about where we're sitting if we're going to sit next to each other and write notes. And now that thought can be shared by both of us instead of it only having to be on your radar. Because we do quite a lot together, right? So it's kind of nice that I'm like, now I know. Now I can be aware of that. That's helpful.
It's been interesting because it really has been my whole life. So it's not even on the forefront of my mind anymore. When I was younger, elementary school, high school, it was more on the forefront of my mind. And now it's just like, yep, it's just whatever it is. We just, I figured out the measuring cup. I figured
Right.
out a scoop. We just adjust. And I think that's also pretty amazing that we really are so resilient as humans.
And so adaptable. Yeah.
Yes.
Yep.
And we just figure it out. Maybe it takes a little bit of effort and then we just get used to whatever the thing is. I use the cutter all the time. I use the scissors.
Yep.
They're more right-handed, but I make it work. So I think that's also pretty cool about humans.
Yep. Yep. I also love that there are people who are like, okay, I figured it out. It's fine. I just figured it out. And then there are people who are like, wait a minute. I am going to create a line of this for left-handed people. And I was asking you about the mouse. I'm like, does the mouse, like a computer mouse, is it a problem? You're like, yeah, it is. But you said there's actually a fix for that.
Yeah. You can program them. If it's a wireless, well, actually probably even wired also. I don't use a mouse. I just use my laptop now.
Yeah.
But earlier on, there was a way that you could reprogram a mouse. So it could be on the left-hand side and you could switch the buttons if you wanted to.
Yeah. Yeah, which is great. And so what I love is that it is so wonderful to have people who are like, you know what? I'm just going to figure it out and go with the flow of life. And it's so wonderful that there are people who are like, why? Why can't we figure out something to reprogram the mouse? Or why can't we have a left-handed measuring cup or a left-handed measuring tape? Like there's lots of people who need this. So it's lovely that we have both kinds of people in the world.
Yeah, totally. I totally agree. Well, and even my Apple Watch, when I was setting it up, it did say, if you're left-handed, you can do it upside down. So it's still upside down. It's still like it's made for a right-handed person, but you can reprogram it. And so I can have the button on the outside, like toward my wrist, toward my hand, instead of where for years watches have been made for right-handers. So the dial has always been against, like pointed toward my elbow.
Yeah.
So that has been nice that there are definitely things that have shifted so that people with left-handedness can do it that way if they want, or keep doing it the right-handed way, and it's fine.
So now we don't have to, but we could change language, right? Instead of calling it upside down, we can just call it, is it north or south, or is it hand pointing or elbow pointing? We could come up with that. The other part of this that is kind of fun that connects is that my 7th grader has been doing some genetics in his health class or science class. Probably science. And so he came home with the list of different things. Can you roll your tongue or not? What color eyes do you have? Are your earlobes attached or not? All those things. But 2 that he brought up are pretty familiar, but I thought it would be fun to just give them a try with you and also with our listeners to remind us how it's so easy to have some little minor difference that feels really weird if we try and do it the other way, and to remember how that can spread out into other things. And so we can maybe all be a little more gentle with each other, maybe, as we're learning about those things. One of them is to fold your arms. I'm going to change my angle here. So will you fold your arms? And I don't know if you can change your angle so we can see them.
Yep, I can.
Okay.
Well, let's see if I can.
Yeah.
Here, I'll just do.
Okay. Yeah, just get up. Okay. So
That's funny. We totally are mirrored.
Okay. So which hand?
My right hand is on top.
Okay. And my left hand is on top. So now try and do it the other way. I have to really think about it. Okay. This feels so wrong to me. It's super hard to do. And here's what's fun. So my son who did this and we fold our arms the same way. And then we asked my other son, he's opposite. He's flipped. So he's like you. And then we asked my husband and he's like my other son. So out of the 4 of us, 2 of us were one way and 2 of us were the other. And we both tried the other way. And some of us were like, I can't even make myself do that. And then you do it and you're like, that's so uncomfortable. And it feels so, so wrong. But then one of the group was like, yeah, I can do it the other way. It's kind of uncomfortable. So interesting too, how we respond to it. For some, it's like, yeah, it's kind of weird. And for others, it's like, oh my gosh, don't make me do that again.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Right. So
totally. Well, and I think I keyed in on that early on. I think it might've been middle school science class also that we had talked about some of those differences. And I really can do both. When I'm just folding my arms intentionally right that second, it's right over left. Right. But it is almost as comfortable. Yeah. Very close to as comfortable doing it the other way. That it isn't a stretch for me. So that's interesting.
And my one son was like that. Yeah. But the rest of us were just like, nope, there's a definite way.
Weird. Yeah.
Okay. So the other one is to clasp your hands. So you just clasp your hands and you see where your thumb is. So is your right thumb over or your left thumb?
My left is on top.
And for me, it's my right thumb. So same thing there. What was interesting is, I'm trying to think. So my right arm is under when I fold my arms, and my right thumb is over when I clasp my hands. And so then, of course, you try it the other way. How's that one? Are you okay with that one either way?
It's a little less comfortable.
Yeah, because that feels really uncomfortable to me. So I'm thinking, especially as we date and we get married or we're working in different settings with other people, and we're thinking, this is not a big deal. Why can't you just do it my way? Well, with something as silly as a measuring tape, maybe, or a hand clasp, there are things that it's like, it just feels horrible. And then I'm distracted the whole time by the fact it feels horrible, or it really is harder because I'm reading numbers upside down, or I have to kind of totally reorient my world. So yeah, I think it's helpful to play with that perspective a little bit at times.
Totally. Well, and I think it's so interesting that we don't even realize what we don't know.
Yes.
Right? And I have tried to help my kids see what we are used to feels normal, but what other families are used to feel normal for them.
Yep.
And so then as they've had different encounters and maybe different experiences in other parts of the world or whatever, just noticing that is normal for them. And it feels very abnormal. But I think being a little more open-minded.
Yeah.
That just because it feels natural to me does not mean everyone else is doing it that way. And that really is the truth. Right. We think everyone does it the same way because that's our perspective. But no, most people are doing things very different than we are if we really break it down. And it doesn't mean it's wrong. Right. It doesn't mean there's a right or wrong. Right. It just is different. And I love that. I just love having some of that exposure around with my kids and whatever too.
Yeah, I totally agree. One other kind of fun thing that kind of relates to how you cross your arms, that you're fine either way, is the phenomenon of being ambidextrous. And so when my oldest child was in maybe first grade or something, he was coloring one of those pattern block things. And I don't even know what the pattern was, but he's like, hey, Mom, watch this. And he had a crayon in each hand. And he went like this along the whole thing. And he did them both at the same time. And I think one time he even went from two different ends and could cut. And I remember, again, I was just like, what are you doing? How can you even do that? That's awesome. That's totally awesome. But how can you do it? And this son has talked about, he writes with his right hand. I think he kicks with his right foot. But there's certain things he does with the opposite hand, maybe brushing teeth or whatever. And I wonder too, as you said about being open-minded, if we open our minds up to that and look at it as an exciting adventure of finding out how different people view the world and engage with the world, if actually that gives us a lot more potential for great things to come out of the world. Because then we can also expand it to things like talents or gifts or skills or whatever, rather than it coming across as a threat or something that is just ridiculous, which was my first response, right, to the whole ice cream scooping event, and not beating myself up about it, but really just laughing at myself about being so sure that this guy was being crazy.
Being dramatic.
Like, I know. And I'm like,
cannot be that hard.
That's right. And I'm like, you're right. So now I can maybe be a little gentler in maybe more important moments that have nothing to do with ice cream.
I think that's the beauty of this, is realizing this could come up in lots of areas.
Yep.
And so, the open-mindedness to somebody else's perspective, a different way of seeing it or doing it or whatever. Yeah. So good.
Thanks for coming to Meeting of the Moms. We hope it made your load a little lighter. We'd love to hear what's on your mind. Send your celebrations, takeaways, and suggestions for future topics to momswithamyandlorna@gmail.com.
If you enjoyed the show, please like, share, and subscribe. If this isn't the right fit for you, we wish you well on your journey. Until next time, I'm Lorna Adams.
And I'm Amy Rasmussen. See you next week at Moms.